I would say today that is still a revolutionary idea.
It's a revolutionary idea back then and it's still today, but it's absolute truth. That's for any career, entrepreneur, finance. If you can master those, you can do anything. I think the SEALs activated the entrepreneurial spark. You have to be very entrepreneurial to be even attracted to the SEALs or to be able to operate in that environment.
Some people wait for opportunity. Others fight for it. Welcome to Tactical Wealth, the show where discipline, service, and real-world experience become pathways to financial power. I'm your host, Kaj Larson. On each episode, we bring you the stories and the wisdom of those who have gone from boots on the ground to successful careers, from military to wealth, and how they've done it so you can apply those insights to your own mission and your own life. This is Tactical Wealth, from military to money. Welcome back to a special San Diego edition of Tactical Wealth, the show where we talk about how veterpreneurs, people who have served and worn the cloth of the country, go from military to money. We're coming to you from San Diego because San Diego is a hub. It's a central locus of military personnel. And at the very top of the heap, the top of the food chain there is perhaps my guest today, Commander Mark Devine, or should I say Dr. Mark Devine?
Whatever you want to call me. Cyborg.
Dr. Devine, welcome to the show.
Booyah.
It's really an honor to have you. Mark, you probably don't know this, but I actually think that my first taste of military entrepreneurship came as a young junior officer when I was assigned to Group 1 under Naval Special Warfare. And you were a reserve officer working at Group 1. And I was a young JO who had just come back from my first deployment. And I think I was a lieutenant at the time, and you were a commander, and you were just so busy and raring to go. And I was like, who is this guy? And he's so aggressive. And then somebody's like, oh, that's Mark Devine. He owns NavySeals.com. And he's this great entrepreneur on the outside. I was like, what's an entrepreneur? But I like to think that planted the seed for my own entrepreneurship.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. You were a go-getter too.
Well, we can smell our own.
Yeah. The reserves were great. A lot of SEALs like me did, part-time, about 10 years active, 10-year reserve. Once you get over that 10-year mark, it's kind of hard to walk away, right? So the reserves provide a nice opportunity to keep your toe in the game, put the uniform on. Once the uniform was on and I was operational, it was like I never left, right? The weekend warrior thing, where you're part of the reserve, that was kind of hard.
Yeah.
But so those times I was at Group 1 were long-term stints. I did a year there. When I got deployed to Iraq, it was through Group 1 with SEAL Team 1. A lot of good stuff in reserves. I thought it was the best part-time job in the world. You know what I mean?
I will say at the time, the SEAL reserves were barely online at that time. They just barely existed. But the stigma about reservists or dirtbag reservists or whatever, you fit none of that. Square jawed, all American. I was like, who is this robot in front of me?
Funny you should say that. My nickname at SEAL Team 3 was Cyborg.
Was it? That makes sense. Yeah. What was this crazy story you were telling me that you're just dripping orange blood? Why don't we prove to people? We thought this was a show about wealth building, but it turns out it's really about alien conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I had my first major traumatic accident in my life. I made it through 20 years of SEALs. I didn't get shot. I didn't get blown up. I didn't have, I had a bad parachute accident, but I literally just stood up and walked away from it. It's like a complete malfunction midair in it. And I finally caught air, maybe 100 feet above ground, and it slowed me down enough where I just walked away. Not a broken bone, right? And then I go on this snowmobile trip. And I'm holding on for dear life, going 80 miles an hour. Going, what the hell am I doing trying to keep up with this jerk who invited me? And I get run off the trail in this kind of wooded area by another sled who was trying to do a head on with me. Then I hit a tree going 40 miles an hour. Oh, and I fortunately just glanced the side of my head because I went on. I think I was, as a lifetime martial artist, kind of aware like we are, body positioning is always something that, right, you're aware of. And so I immediately went off in a pivot and It saved my life. So I glanced my head and I took the impact on my shoulder, shattered it into 18 pieces, shoulder blade shattered, 8 broken ribs.
Broke your scapula, right?
The scapula, which is a shoulder blade.
Okay.
Not the
collarbone part, the back part. Yeah.
It's a very hard bone to break, actually. Hardest bone in the body to break.
But you did.
Shattered it.
Well, you always were an overachiever.
Definitely an overachiever. So 8 months later, I'm doing really well. Like I haven't fully recovered, but I'm back doing, like I can do 20 rounds of Cindy in a decent time, and push-ups have a lot of pain, but I can muddle my way through. But I was at my physical therapist, and she was, doing her work, getting range of motion, because I'm still not, like, I can't quite get the full range. I'm about 80%. And all of a sudden she just stops and she's freaking out. She goes, "What the hell?" And all this orange fluid was just draining out of my shoulder, and it burrowed like a little hole because this fluid had gotten trapped in there. And the lymph system, because of the scar tissue, lymph system wasn't able to drain it. That's my assessment, right? This is like Dr. Devine.
So you're
Dr. Devine's assessment. The lymph system basically got corrupted, and all this fluid got in there, and it had to come out. And this is the beauty of our bodies. The healing power of our body is incredible. So my body knew enough to like find the weak spot, which is through the scar tissue. It bored a little hole through like a minor infection, opened it up, and released all that fluid on the floor of the physical therapy.
So you're dripping this like bright orange blood.
It looked like radiator fluid.
Yeah.
Anyways, Mark, the net there is my hardware is being rejected. That hardware has to come out.
I mean, look, I will tell you as somebody who's looked up to you as a mentor for a long time, you do have this alien-like persona. I mean, you're a New York Times bestselling author. You've built multiple businesses. Obviously, like your time as a commander in the SEAL teams. This is extraordinary stuff, and it's legendary even within a community of legendary men. But tell me where it all started. How did you get to the SEAL teams?
That's a fascinating. I don't know if you know this. I didn't come into the SEALs until I was 25.
I did not know that.
Right? Most people assume you come in either right after high school as an enlisted guy or right after college, a 21-year-old college graduate. I went to Colgate University, and the military was a million miles away from my mind.
That's because it was Colgate. I mean, no military. Listen, I went to UC Santa Cruz. I get it.
We had a ROTC. It's pretty liberal arts school.
Yeah.
Even though it's upstate New York. In fact, I had a kind of a negative association with the military because my dad was really poo-pooed it. And, it was one of those kind of East Coast elitist attitudes that military service is like if you fucked up or if you got no other option.
Yeah, go to jail, son, or go to the military, you choose.
Exactly what happened to my father, right? He was at Union College, he was down in Schenectady, New York, and he drove a car drunk into a fraternity house. It caused all sorts of damage. And so he's finding himself standing in front of a judge, and the judge is like, "Dude, you're going to go to jail. Or you could join the Army." My dad's like, "I'll take option B." And so he had a negative association with the Army. He was in Germany in like the 11th Airborne when it was all like they had very little mission. And
peacetime military, big green machine, all that shit. Yeah.
So military was not something for me. I was going to go into business because my family was a business family. And so I got this job out of senior year where it was a cohort with a bunch of other like big 8 accounting firms, accounting consulting. So I got hired by Coopers and Lybrand. You familiar with that name?
Sure. Yeah.
Harry Swaterhouse.
Yep. Yeah. PwC. Yeah.
And they sent me to NYU Stern School of Business. And of course I had to get in. I got in on a probation because I was like a solid 2.8 GPA. Because, academics were pretty much third on the list. You had women, beer, sports, women, beer, and then I guess it's
fourth on the list. Yeah. Just got demoted.
And the top 6, you were just rotating which one was the most important depending on the week. So there I was. I'm going through this program and I'm thinking, I'm going to be a CPA, MBA, and then I'm going to go into Wall Street. I'm going to make a lot of money and become a trader or investment banker, and we know a lot of guys. So what's unique about that period? So I started going down this road and I didn't question that story at all. I was actually bought into it. I wasn't very happy though, right? Now, one thing that always made me happy was hardcore training, right? And it was just in my nature. And when I was growing up, we had a summer house in the Adirondacks on Lake Placid, right? So my front yard is the lake, my backyard's a mountain range. So I'm always under the water skiing, barefooting, creating these contraptions where I'd go underwater behind the boat. like on the little SDVs. And running up and down the mountain, and just like, just insanely good shape, right? Because I spent all my time outside just banging around. And so when I got to, and then I was a competitive athlete at Colgate, competitive swimmer, triathlon, road crew. So here I am in New York, and I'm looking around, everyone is like pasty and fat, unhealthy. And was like, there's no way in hell I'm going to be like that, right? No way. And I believed at that young age, in 1985, that our bodies could be fit and healthy until the day we drop. And that aging was a thought problem, a problem with your thinking. And so
I would say today that is still a revolutionary idea.
It's a revolutionary idea back then, and it's still today, but it's absolute truth, right? Your body will follow your mind. We used to say that in SEAL training, right? Body follows the mind. So get your mind squared away, right? Your body will be there for you. So I decided, well, I'm going to keep training, and I'm just going to squeeze it around this crazy lifestyle of working full time, going to night school. Run 6 miles in the morning, come back, do my stretching, journaling, go to lunch. When everyone would go to lunch, I went and did like what we now know as a HIIT workout. You know what I mean? And the way I did that is I would like say, I would just grab a dumbbell here and a kettlebell there, and I'd take this and I'd like fence it off like a dog. I'd like pee around this circle.
Yeah.
So nobody come in here. And then I would just go around this thing. It's like sweat flying all over the place. Yeah. People wouldn't dare, come close to me. And then at night, after, we got off at like 5 to 5:30 because it's a work study program. They know we have to get down to NYU, blah, blah, blah. And so most of my peers would go home and, eat and get ready for school. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, I got 2.5 hours. That's another training block. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do in that time frame? And I didn't really have an answer because I didn't want to go to the gym again. I didn't want to go for a run. It's too complicated to go rowing. There's a lot of things I could have done, but it just didn't quite fit. And I walked home one day on 23rd Street, and I was on 22nd, and I walked past this martial arts studio, which was completely random. And it wasn't just any martial arts, it was global headquarters of something called Sato Karate. And I just stopped, and I heard it first of all, and I looked up, I saw the sign, and I was like, that's it. This is what I'm going to do. And I went upstairs to check it out, and there I met like what I would consider to be my first real mentor, Tadashi Nakamura. He was the grandmaster, founder of the whole style of karate. He had 300,000 students worldwide back then already. And what was unique about him, I could tell right away, and I couldn't put words to it, but he was a master. Not just a master of the physical arts, but of the mental and spiritual arts. Like he was an enlightened man. And I only know that now because I've studied it so much, right? The qualities, the spontaneity, the lack of ego, abject humility. Like he would be like intense. Like there's not a person in that hall. Like if all of them attacked him, they would all lose. That's how freaking powerful he was. And at the same time, he'd be like giggling like a schoolgirl at the stupidest jokes.
Yeah.
And I was like just smitten by this guy. Like, holy shit, like whatever that is. Like I've never seen that. And I really want a piece of that because I didn't feel confident inside. I didn't feel really good. And part of my backstory is a lot of alcohol in my family, a lot of rage in my father. And so, my coping mechanism for that was really to like get myself walled off and then put points on the board to try to prove myself. So already you can see this playing out. MBA, CPA, right? Blah, blah, blah. And so I started training there. And on one Thursday night, after a few weeks, I stayed to watch the black belt class. And after the black belt class, it was very impressive. I was like, wow, someday maybe that'll be me, right? After the class, I see the lights go down and they're like shuffling people out and they're asking me to leave. I'm like, what's going on? And this small group of black belts were taking these little wooden benches over in this corner. One of them got a candle out and lit the candle. And I asked the guy at the front desk, I said, what the hell are they doing? I said, oh, that's the Zen class. I was like, Zen? What's that? 21-year-old Mark The Mind, 1985. What's Zen?
Right.
And they said, well, it's a Japanese meditation, right? I'm like, what's meditation? They said, well, it's training the mind. I was like, oh, I want to train my mind. So do you think a white belt could join? He said, well, maybe, you got to ask, Kaicho, which is Grandmaster. So I saw him the next time and I said, Kaicho, that meditation class on Thursday nights, could I join it? He's like, of course. Of course. I mean, he had hundreds of students and only like 10 of them were doing this class. So I joined the class. And I got to tell you, Kaj, within a few months, I started to experience some radical transformations. Now, part of this is because I was only 21, right? And the brain is not fully developed, right? Until you're in mid to late 20s. And so I was experiencing like accelerated transformation of how my brain was growing. If I hadn't done this, it would have developed the same patterns that along the path that I was on. Academic, intellectual, being fed all the content of society and culture that says, oh, that's good and that's bad. But suddenly I was just sitting there and sitting in absolute silence and learning how to control my mind and concentrate, attention control. And then I would drop off. That started happening about 3 to 6 months into the practice where I would literally just drop off and lose complete sense of self and time and space. But I was completely aware.
A true Zen state.
It was a true Zen state, yeah. And I would come out of those things and wow, sometimes it felt like I was there for hours, sometimes for seconds. But everything would have like this really rich, thick feeling, almost like static electricity. Everything was slower. I would walk down the street to the subway. I felt like I was walking a couple inches above the sidewalk. Everything looked beautiful. I'm talking about Manhattan. And everything was beautiful. And I was like, oh my God, I love this stuff. And then I started to get like intuition, right? Like inner insight, feelings, knowingness. And one of the dominant thoughts that kept coming to me was that I'm a warrior. I had never had that thought before. I mean, I was barreling down the path to be a CPA merchant. You know what I mean? If you want to categorize it as like themes, I was a merchant. I was going to go make money. But every time I meditated, I come back with a sense that I'm a warrior. And then I started to have this kind of existential angst, be like, if I'm a warrior, what the hell am I doing over here? So I started to ask different kind of questions. Like, if I'm meant to be a warrior, how? And why? Can I be a warrior as a CPA? I'm sure you could, but is that the way I'm meant to be a warrior? And that answer came back, no. In fact, then I got a really strong sense that the whole path that I had chosen was not the right path. I had chosen the wrong story to live because it was spoon-fed me.
And because you're a product of your influences, like all of us.
100%. But how many people, it's so common, like how many people are living a story that they think is theirs, but it's really not. It's part of their conditioning. Family, cultures, social media these days. So I had the great privilege of being able to stare at myself in these moments of silence, right? And to see that the story that I was living was not the right story for me. And that if I kept going down that path, I probably would have a lot of money and the kind of outward success, but I would be missing my entire purpose for being here. And the ego did not want to hear that, right? Because then when I started to ask, well, how can I be a warrior? Then I had to play I had to play a little game with imagery, right? So this is where visualization and imagination is so powerful. So I had to imagine myself as warriors doing different kind of things, right? Yeah. And so I tried them one of the times, like, what if I fly jets from the Marine Corps? Then I would visualize that for days and days. And at first it was really exciting. And then it got routine. And I got bored. And so, okay, I guess maybe that's not it. And I say, I vision myself being like a longshoreman on a rig. Like that would be pretty cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Couldn't you see out there just banging it up in the North Sea for a while? It's like gritty, gnarly work. And I got bored.
Essentially, you imagined the world's most dangerous jobs until you honed in on the one that was right for you.
The worst of the dangerous.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, the most miserable too.
This is so fascinating, Mark, because on a bunch of different levels, I think for historical context, 1985 was sort of a moment when America was like just realizing and waking up to like Japanese business culture, and there was a romantic. I mean, sushi. I was actually living in Manhattan. I was young, but I was living in Manhattan because my parents had split and my mom had moved back to New York. I was living in Manhattan at that time, and I remember the first time in early 1980s, mid 1980s, when she brought sushi back to the house, and it was this novel thing, and we're, you know, young kids, and we're like eating sushi, and I had sushi for lunch today. Like, you know, what's past is prologue. Right. And I think so much of what you're saying now is foreshadowing for the rest of your life. I mean, without a doubt, and you've built businesses around this concept, like your mastery of the mental battle space has been one of your keys to success. Sure. And it seems like this is the genesis.
That's where it started. Not only the tools, right? So think about this. We talk about now, and we teach through SEALFIT, and now they're teaching at Buds. Big 4 skills, right? Breath control. Well, guess what I was doing with Nakamura? And when I would sit down on the bench, I was box breathing. Nobody taught me, but I did learn how to control my breathing. And I felt and experienced that controlled breathing, nostril breathing, led to arousal control, attention control, and ultimately the ability to concentrate deeper. It was having a profound effect on how my mind worked. And so I learned at that ripe young age of 21 that the breath is a link between your physiology and your psychology and your emotions. And that if you control the breathing, then you control all of those. Wow. Right? Academics and science still hasn't caught up to that insight. Right. Second was I talked about visualization, right? Now, when I understood, like, I wanted to be a warrior and I started to do this kind of visual, you know, kind of what type of warrior, I didn't really know much. I heard about the SEALs, but I didn't really know anything about them. And one day I was walking home.
It was all Delta Force back then. Yeah, everybody was talking about Delta Force. Nobody was talking about SEALs.
We were still the secret, quiet organization. There were no movies or TV shows about it. And I walked past the recruiting office and I saw a poster on the wall facing out and it said, "Be someone special." And it was SEALs doing cool shit. Didn't say anything about the SEALs. It was just sizzle in the steak, come in and we'll sell you on the submarine force. Which they tried to do to me. And they're like, "You don't want to be that." They're like, "Those guys are weird. You know, you'll never make it, blah, blah, blah. You don't want to be an officer. Those guys are cake eaters." Like, I heard all of it. But I was like, that's how I'm supposed to be a warrior. That's it. And they had a video, recruiting video, same title. You can find it on YouTube. "Be Someone Special." Still, by this, even though it's super old, it's one of the best videos ever done. I watched that thing like 30 times, and then I put myself into it. And every morning after my run, I would visualize a condensed version of that show with me in it, crushing it, doing everything. And I kid you not, Kaj, 9 months of that practice. None of this stuff is like, you know, instant manifestation. But if you visualize and hold the positive expectation that this is going to happen, it will happen, right? If it's the right thing for you. This was the right thing for me. I believed it was going to happen. I visualized it every day. 9 months into that practice, I had this overwhelming sense of absolute certainty wash over me. Like I had already accomplished it in the matrix. And 2 days later, my recruiter calls me and is like, "Mark," his name is Nick Philippone. "Mark, I can't believe it. You got one of the billets to go to Officer Candidate School with a guarantee follow on to Buds." And they only do like 1 or 2 a year of those. Statistically, it's very hard to get. So visualization, breath control, and then mental management, right? It's like I had to learn, because my dialogue at my family was very negative. It was the meditation that opened up the space, and I could see my thoughts in real time. And this is profound because I had at 21, most people wait their whole life for this. I had the profound realization that I was not my thoughts. I mean, it sounds so simple now, but think about it. Most people are completely merged. There's zero discernible time between having a thought and then getting captured by that thought. And the meditative practice opened up this space to where I could have a thought and then I could decide what to do with that thought. And I could watch it. And what I saw was, wow, that's negative. Ugh. Oh, that's even more negative, right? And these thoughts aren't making me feel good. about myself or about my path, whatever. So how about if I just stop those and insert something else? So mental management, these 3 skills right there, right? That's for any career, entrepreneur, finance. Like if you can master those, you can do anything.
Yeah, it's what's amazing is that you came to them at such an early stage before they were part of the mainstream discourse.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of the theme of the arc of your story, is that you have been an early pioneer, especially in the mental battle space, right? In the mental game of finding innovative ideas or innovative practices, and then being one of those people who frankly helped bring them into the mainstream. Because, now there's meditation apps on your phone. But in 1985, right, you had to travel to either India or Japan to find it.
The real deal.
Right.
I found one of them in the middle of New York.
Yeah. Well, it's the melting pot theory, right?
Yeah, it's interesting, Kaj. I laugh because there are people making millions of dollars selling breath control.
Yeah.
Apps or selling breath certification. I'm like, I've been teaching breath work since 2006, starting with SEALs.
Yeah. So, but it makes me think that like there is something in your nature that is over the horizon looking, that you are attracted to, to ideas that ultimately can become disruptive ideas. Doesn't mean you bat 1,000, nobody bats 1,000, right? But there's something in your nature that is attracted. I always say part of the key to being an entrepreneur is that you have to see the world not as it is, but as how it could be.
That's right.
And so, okay, so I'm interested in next in learning, did your time on active duty, your time in the SEAL teams, did it enhance these ideas? Did you apply them to be effective in the SEAL teams? Because ultimately what I really want to talk about is how we got to this sort of entrepreneurial, but it sounds to me like that entrepreneurial spark existed like already within you.
I think the SEALs activated the entrepreneurial spark.
Okay.
Right. I think that you have to be very entrepreneurial to be even attracted to the SEALs or to be able to operate in that environment. Very small teams, like an intense reliance on each other to get a common mission done. I mean, these are entrepreneurial qualities, right? A lot of trust, right? A lot of authenticity, like emotional maturity. You wouldn't, most people think, well, military guys don't have that. SEALs actually do, the good ones, right? But back to the first part of your question, when I got the SEAL training, the skills were like money. I mean, day one, right? It's going crazy. Zinke, who's now in Congress is just lording over this new red meat all on the beach. People are dropping like flies. And I'm just sitting there with this shit-eating grin on my face, going like, yeah, this is good. Right? This is fun. It's like hit the beach, and the buddy I went through Officer Canada School with turns and runs to ring the bell, and I'm running down the beach thinking, man, I'm getting paid to do this. Yeah. And the instructors are like throwing all these spears at us, and they're just bouncing off me because I'm just like, this is all just a show, and none of it can affect me unless I allow it to.
Yeah, and you had already developed the mental body armor.
Developed that body armor, right? That mental shield wall, right? That they couldn't penetrate. And inside was positive, right? I was like, oh, this is easy. So I taught this to my boat crew. Guess who was standing with me on graduation day?
Every single one of your
Every
boat
one
crew.
of them.
Yeah.
Because of these simple skills. It just led to like moment to moment greater presence, a greater trust, because we were all like in control. And so we could look at each other, hey, Kaj, let me help you out here. Right? So we were like helping each other out. We talked about success, not about failure. We had a vision. And talking about things, just like a SEAL brief, right? You talk about it in the end state. This is what it looks like when we win. We don't really care how we're going to get there. We know it's going to be soup sandwich, right? But this is what victory looks like. So we're using our visualization. I was teaching them the breath control. And a lot of that was just through, like coaching. Like, okay, hey, Bob, get yourself under control. Close your mouth, breathe through your nose, calm down. We've got this. Stuff like that. And oh my God, everyone's like, yeah, we got this. And just day in and day out, relentlessly, until suddenly, like, they were then coaching each other, and right? I'm busy.
If you didn't say it, I was going to say it. I know it is. I know it's true through SEAL legend and lore. How extraordinary you were as a young junior officer. Many people who are close to you have told you. SEALs sometimes can be like there's like a little sewing circle. We can be like a bunch of high school girls talking shit about each other.
Aristotle's idea of the whole person, right? Spec Ops training. I don't know, which is limited to SEALs. Spec Ops training is probably the only training in the world that, except for things that we're now trying to do, right, through innovation in a civilian sense, through like SEALFIT and what you guys do, that develops the whole person. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, intuitionally, even. I call those the 5 mountains. We literally call it 5 mountain training. And so you end up with this very diverse, really interesting character set, like someone who's willing to lay their life down for their teammate. Well, at the same time, they're super spiritual. You can be sitting next to them in church on Sunday and not even know it. And they're always in service, right? The challenge is that that SEALs and Spec Ops guys tend to, and why we're good at entrepreneurship is we tend to really thrive on a lot of variety. And we get bored really quickly, right? And so like talking about transition and you have, I know this is a tactical wealth podcast. You have to be really thoughtful when you transition out of the Spec Ops, right? Because you could find yourself in a grind and be hating it. And I've seen a lot of guys kind of like, especially if they haven't dealt with their post-traumatic stress issues, they get into this grind and they hate it and they're like, my life is over.
Yeah.
Right. I used to have all this adventure and all this excitement, all this variety, and now I'm doing the same freaking groundhog thing every day.
Yeah, and you cling to something. So, Mark, what was the first business that you built?
Coronado Brewing Company.
Okay.
Yes. So I launched, I was on active duty.
I think I have supported that business. Yeah.
Sure you have. I drank a lot of free beer.
Right. You drank all the profits away.
It's something. Back to like the why behind starting a business. So for me, that there wasn't a strong why for me. It was I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't want to go back into corporate America. I didn't see myself doing some sort of alphabet soup thing. That was for other guys.
Sure.
And so I wanted to do something entrepreneurial, and free beer sounded really good to me. Part of what I think is the most important thing for entrepreneurs is to do to really get clear about where your blind spots are. Right? Your emotional shadow, your traumas, your biases, because you're going to drag that stuff into the business. And one of my blind spots was like pretty severe codependence from growing up in a family like that, an alcoholic family. And so when my brother Rick came and said, hey, we're going to bring my brother Ron into the business as an equal partner. And, he's going to be marketing. There's not a snowball's chance in hell I would ever say yes to that today. But I just fucking said yes. Okay. And so suddenly I got diluted. Now I'm one of 3 founders, and he didn't bring anything. Yeah. I put all my money into the business. I raised all the money, and this guy, Rick, and now his brother didn't put a dime into the business. And now if things go wrong, it's 2 against 1. Guess what? How long is it going to take before things go wrong? Right? Not very long.
We could do a whole show on founders divorce.
It's awful. Yeah. So, basically knowing who you're partnering with is one of the first and most important things for starting a business. Like, make sure you're getting in bed with a worthy and trustworthy partner. And with the SEALs, like, we had this massive assessment, selection, and training program.
Right. And so vetted.
Even then, some people didn't make it onto the team.
Right.
But you knew what you were getting when you formed a team and went out the door. You know what I mean? In a civilian situation, you don't know.
Yeah, it's the wild, wild west.
It's wild, wild west. And you got to expect that you're going to get all sorts of cats and dogs, from the greatest to the most knave. So
that's fascinating.
That turned out to be a devolution.
But we learn hard, right, from those failures. And Mark, there's always this rumor, like, well, I know it's true actually, but I don't know the exact story. You bought NavySeals.com, right?
Yes.
When the Navy was like, what's this like interwebs thing?
No, I bought the domain for $35. I still have it, right? Hey, Navy, if you want NavySeals.com, come on, just offer me some money for it. And I've done more free recruiting for that thing than probably anybody in the world.
Right.
You know, and in fact, that's the foundation for a lot of the work I've done. So I was doing the brewery, and, you know, this is 1996, and like the internet was just so nascent. But I looked at that and I said, you know what? Someone's going to do the SEALs, and it should be a SEAL, I thought, right? And so I bought NavySEAL.com, and I put up a website initially with the help of a friend, and it was actually pretty cool. That first website was really neat. And then I started to sell stuff, right? This is before Amazon, and so we were selling like cool guy stuff. Built a couple $1 million e-commerce business there, and then of course we had the three themes were get SEAL fit.
Yep.
And so I was training people to get SEAL fit. That spun out to be its own business.
Yep.
Get SEAL smart. That was all the mental toughness stuff I'm innovating. And that spun out to become Unbeatable Mind. And then get SEAL gear. That was the e-commerce. And I grew that thing to a few $1 million in revenue. And two things happened. This is really cool. This is how talk about pivoting, right? So 2008 comes around. I really went hard into e-commerce 2001. I launched the site in 1997, but it wasn't until 2001 before it was a revenue generating business. The bottom dropped out of the market in 2008, right? Financial crisis.
The GFC, yeah.
And then right then Walmart.com and Amazon.com were just like coming to their own. And so everybody just started going to buy the low priced options. And suddenly everything that we sold in NavySEAL.com, you could find up Amazon for cheaper. And 90% of our business evaporated within months. 90%. And so fortunately, that seems like a negative thing, but it actually was really positive. So prior to that, 3 years prior to that, because of the get SEAL fit component of SEAL fit, we were training a lot of spec ops candidates through forums, through local meetups, you know, and we were having great success with that, right? Demonstrable success. It makes sense, right? If someone's really hungry enough, they want to be a SEAL, they're hungry enough to seek out mentorship and to form these training groups, there's a good chance that they're going to make it, right? Even sure you know that too.
Sure.
And so that was right around the time, 2004 or 5, when now we were 3 or 4 years after 9/11, and Congress is saying, we need 500 new SEALs. Do you remember that? We need 500 new SEAls.
Yeah.
And the SEALs were like, and then the special forces, they literally just put like 1,000 guys in.
Yeah, but it takes us 2.5 years to grow. So 5 years to grow, you know.
Special operators are not mass produced.
Yeah.
Right. And so they had to go testify. I didn't do this, but, you know, the NSW went to Congress and like, this is not how it works. You would destroy the force if you just throw 500 people into it. We're not mass produced, but what we can do, one of the ideas was, what if we put a program together to mentor and train candidates at the front end so that when they go to boot camp and then to SEAL training, they'll be better qualified. And also let's insert another training program in between boot camp and BUDS, and we call that SEAL prep training. And so by the time all these candidates get the BUDS, we're going to have a much higher quality candidate, which will improve the assessment rate or the throughput rate, which will get you 500 men, but it'll take 5 years. And so Congress said, okay, we'll buy that. So Navy Recruiting Men put out a contract bid, and they did it through a prime contractor they were already working with to stand up nationwide mentoring program for Navy SEALs. Guess who bid on it?
Yeah.
And guess who won?
Right.
Why? Because I was already doing it.
Yeah. And you had a track record.
And guess who was really pissed that I won that? Eric Prince.
Oh, yeah.
Blackwater. Yeah. Because they were trying to get it. They went after it too. So you had this $1 billion company thinking that we're a shoo-in. And then we have this company that's like brand new off the street. I changed my name to US Tactical to make it sound like a bigger company. It was really just NavySeals.com. And we won this contract. It's like a $10 million contract. 5 years, right? So we stand up this program. I hire 36 former team guys, put them out in all the recruiting districts. I visited every single recruiting district myself, like on this grand tour. I hired a bullfrog, Bill Cheatham Reed, to be my kind of program director. The guy's badass. And we took the pass rate. So what was happening is all the SEALs coming through the regular recruiting districts supposed to be able to pass the screening tests and all the other measures, right? And they would get to boot camp and 80-something% were failing. So they're gun decking it, right? So we took that to an 87% pass rate within 1 year. And guess what? Blackwater challenged this contract.
Yeah.
and got it thrown out.
Yeah.
And they reissued it to Blackwater. And so he stole it from me after year one.
What's interesting to me about your business is from like a 360 approach is that almost all of them seem to have this kind of flywheel effect. Now that I really it's really amazing insight to understand the origin and the genesis of them, but they really do push on each other and work together in interesting ways. Look here. You wrote a book called Unbeatable Mind, and that helped power some of the SEALFIT components, which drove audience back to the book, right? Do you think of your businesses that way, as having like synergies that work together?
I did, and you're right. So, and there's a challenge there, right? So I think if you have a lot of scale and you can feed multiple divisions that kind of mutually support each other, to create multiple flywheels supporting each other. That's awesome. Each one of those silos, though, or components needs to be self-sustaining or should be self-sustaining.
Right. You're not doing a loss leader on one in order to power another.
And my problem I had was I had a loss leader on. I was doing too many things, and I was 100% owner. I got so spooked by the Coronado Brewing Company, where I had 45 investors and all this, that I just controlled the ownership. So I learned the hard way that the right partners are actually really good. Bad partners can be devastating, but you need peer level brain power. And I didn't have that peer level brain power. It was all just me trying to figure shit out. And I'm so creative that once I got some like SEALFIT up and running, great, this team can run it, and I'm going to go off and launch Unbeatable, and then I'm going to launch whatever's next.
Yeah.
And I didn't stick with it long enough and finance it enough to make, to get the foundation like rock solid.
Right.
So I've had to kind of pivot and simplify. So that's the kind of the corollary is that's a great model if you have scale. Mm-hmm. But when you're starting out, you need to be really focused.
Yeah. Yeah. First you concentrate, then you can diversify.
Concentrate. You got to be a sniper in the beginning. And then you can bring out the 60 and, the other guns.
I hope that resonates with our audience. Awesome. Mark, we do like to do this little section that we call rapid fire. I say it's like shooting steel, right? You get instant feedback. And so let's take a stab at it. You have so much wisdom and so much experience contained that we're always trying to do these like pragmatic takeaways for people. And like I said, best lessons are learned when we fall. What do you think the best investment you ever made was?
Bitcoin.
Yeah, so good. So good.
I was buying it in 2013.
Right. Okay, so again, like to go back to your theme, right? Like you discovered meditation earlier than most, right? You were big on the web before other people were. And now I learned for the first time here, we've been friends for 15 years, and now I learned for the first time that you bought Bitcoin in 2013. What convinced you to do that?
I was just fascinated by the technology, and it's just like it looked like the future to me.
Dumbest financial mistake?
Selling Bitcoin.
Yeah. Fair.
In fact, I could guarantee it's probably selling every investment I've ever had. Right? Bought a house in IB, Imperial Beach for $100,000, sold it for $100,000. It's worth about 1.5 right now. I bought 100 Bitcoin. I sold almost all of them. I had to buy the rest back at a much higher price. You know what I mean? I had probably 300,000 or 400,000 Doge, or maybe even 1 million Doge.
One of the things I often tell entrepreneurs is, and just respond, like, I don't know who's right and I don't know who's wrong. You're probably right. But like what I often say is it's never bad to ring the cash register. Sell early, sell often. If you've built something once, you can build it again.
This is true. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you, but there's a lot of times when you sell too early. Mm-hmm. Right? So my version of that is take some off the top.
Yeah.
But leave the holdings there.
Yeah.
right?
Can I just say that this is like a great cognitive lesson in that we're often, especially in today's like high velocity world, reduced to this like zero sum thinking. Do you do A or do you do B? And part of Unbeatable Mind, right, is that there's often a third way.
There's always a third way. And to pause, breathe, think about it before you act. And, you know, I got to eat my own dog food because when it comes to investing, I could, you know, get into the FUD on occasion, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And if I had not sold any of my digital assets, any of my real estate, I mean,
yeah,
I wouldn't be retired because I love what I do, but I'd probably be a lot luckier.
This is my favorite question. I actually didn't write this question. My producer, Angie, wrote this question, but it's almost hilarious to ask you this. A book that changed your mindset. I'll tell you a book that changed my mindset, so you can't use the same one. It's called Unbeatable Mind by this guy, Mark The
I heard that's a really good one.
Yeah, that one's all right. Yeah, everybody should check it out.
The first book that I ever read that is in this kind of same vein was Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. And I read that when I was 21 and I was like blown away. Full-on chapter on visualization.
Well, in America, like we don't like to talk about money or class. But these, like you said, money's currency, and it powers the life that we want to live. And it's also body armor against the inevitable snowmobile accidents of life.
That's right. And of course, the key point was the think part, right? He was teaching you how to think. And wealth is just a byproduct of good thinking.
Agreed. Sometimes this is kind of a throwaway, but I think for you, I think people really, really are attracted to how you have organized your life in such a rich cognitive way. But what is your sort of daily routine? What's your morning routine that sets your tone? There's a lot of talk about this in entrepreneurial circles, and I think a lot of bullshit. But I think with you, it's real.
Okay, so I'll first preface it by saying that I've been in business for a while now, and I can totally dictate my schedule. I don't let anyone dictate my schedule. And so I don't take any meetings before 10 in the morning, unless it's really important, right? And sometimes there are things that I have to do that are important. But so what that means is I protect that time for winning in my mind before I step foot in the battle of the day. As Sun Tzu said, victorious warriors win in their mind and then go to battle. So my morning ritual is, I wake up between 5:30 and 6, and training starts immediately. As soon as I regain consciousness, I go back in and begin to prune the mind and curate thoughts, right? Call it first words, first thoughts. And so the mantras will start, the appreciation will start, the gratitude. This is while I'm still laying in bed, the box breathing starts. And I just get myself into a state of feeling really good about myself, right? Feeling good about this day. I know that this day is the most important day of my life because it's the only day I have. Yesterday, only easy day was yesterday, and yesterday is fucking over. And tomorrow is a hope and a fantasy, right? So what you got is today. So then I will, do some other things, but mostly it's like get a cup of coffee, which I usually drink just a few sips of. And then I go into like structured practice. Structured practice for me is journaling and then breathing and meditation practice, right? Which has got different steps to it, right? So it's training different parts of your mind, and then ends with visualization. And I'm visualizing my future self, which is me accomplishing my big mission vision, and then my day. It's like dirt diving the day. All of that takes me from 6 to 7:30. Then I make a smoothie. My wife, by the way, does this training with me. So a couple that can practice together, right, is going to have a powerful relationship. We both get a smoothie. I go down to my training center, which is a different location. I've got the whole setup, my Rogue rig and everything. 20 minutes of yoga and a 20-minute HIIT workout, a sauna, and a cold plunge. That's my morning. And during the day, and this is something I teach in my Unbeatable program, is like, I really focused on like the most important things that I'm going to do. Like today I had a couple podcasts, so that's it. I'll get some other stuff done, but they're not important. What's important is this. So I focus a lot on that. I prep for it. Like there's a pre-event ritual, again, prepping into my mind, it's, setting the expectations, the outcomes. Post-event ritual is the debrief. What did I learn? But then during the day, I have little drills, just like we in the SEAL teams. Hey, man, we walk by a pull-up bar, you're not just going to ignore that sad pull-up bar. It wants a little attention.
Yeah.
Right? So you're going to jump on it and bang out 10 or 15 or 20 pull-ups and burpees, breathing, walking around the block with the dogs. Like, there's things that you do just to stay energetically and mentally positive and charged. And otherwise, you just get depleted throughout the day, and then you hit the wall.
Yeah.
And then people drink coffee or, and they do unhealthy things.
It's actually, it's an amazing little reminder, right? That there are these little micro hits that you can do during the day. Mark, this has been incredible. I mean, I think for our audience, you've done everything from buildandbuyNavySeals.com to starting SEALFIT to training and mentoring thousands, tens of thousands at this point of aspiring SEAL candidates, just regular civilians who want to be successful in their life in these kind of techniques to help them achieve their highest azimuth. You're a PhD, New York Times bestselling author. I mean, I think for an actual human being that's made up of flesh and blood and not titanium and, radiator fluid.
Not an alien.
Yeah. I think for any normal being, doing 10% of what you have accomplished in your life would be extraordinary. And I cannot thank you enough for being here and sharing your wisdom with us. And I will add on a personal note, you have always been an extraordinary mentor to me. You helped see that spark of inspiration for my own journey. And it's an honor to have you here to share your wisdom.
That's awesome. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate it, Mark.
Before I let you go, I know you've already influenced tens of thousands of people. If people are interested in diving deeper, how can they connect with you? How do they learn more? How do they continue to glean wisdom from you?
Reading my books is a great place to start. Of course, they're all on Amazon. So the Way of the SEAL and Unbeatable Mind are two perennial favorites. My latest is called Uncommon. We're pretty active now on social media. I've got my peeps who do that, who help me out, but it's me. I'm there. Mark Divine Official is Instagram, Facebook, and they can find me on LinkedIn. Website, unbeatablemind.com is kind of like the really good slate. The hub. It's like the hub. And we have a new challenge for busy leaders, like entrepreneurs. This is great. It's a 3-day virtual challenge. It's just 2 hours a day. And this is where I go in and I give really deep training over a narrow band of topics. And I do it every month now, 3 days. And you can learn about that at unbeatableleader.com. It's super easy entry. You know what I mean? Like $49 or $117 to attend. That's part of the new model, the new flywheel we're building to bring a new generation of people into our training.
Yeah. Well, Mark, thank you again for being here, brother. It's great to see you. All right. Thanks for locking in with us today. Shout out to Siebert.Valor and Siebert Financial for supporting our journey. We'll be back next week with another powerhouse conversation. More founders, more builders, and leaders who are playing offense in life and in business. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel for exclusive content and extended cuts of your favorite episodes. Until next week, stay tactical, stay driven.